Dozens of terrorists have waltzed into Britain by getting a small boat across the channel. That's the allegation. Robert Jenrick, a man who has seen all the sensitive information available at the Home Office, said, "In the year before I was Immigration Minister, more than a dozen known terror suspects crossed the channel on small boats. By now, that figure is well into the dozens. These are people our security services identified as known quantities, threats to our communities, with links to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, and they waltz right in." Well, those terrorists will no doubt be welcomed into the open arms of these gullible, useful idiots, the Refugees Welcome Brigade. Robert Jenrick also said that around 1,000 migrants who arrived in small boats in 2022 and 2023 have been linked to criminality. Now, the Labour Party has apparently denied this, but I suppose it's a question of who you believe, isn't it? MPs have been banned from hiring foreign interns in case they might be spies. Only those with 3 years UK residency out of the past 5 years will qualify for a parliamentary pass. Now, this annoys me, because our politicians admit that people who we've already vetted might pose a risk to national security. But they expect us to live amongst people who've just broken into Britain. So we, the public, have to take all the risk. Us, the plebs, have to tolerate people living in hotels, council houses, whatever, and we're told, no, don't worry. Or if you do get worried about it, you're far right. But they won't even have foreign staff, just in case they pose a risk to national security. But they're just the same as the Refugees Welcome Brigade, though, aren't they? Because here is a video of some of that Refugees Welcome lot being asked to sign a contract to allow a refugee into their own homes.
I just noticed your placard saying refugees welcome here. Yes. I'm just wondering if you'd like to go down on a list saying you're willing to take the refugees into your home.
Of course not. Only problem is I rent.
You rent?
Yeah.
Maybe an issue?
Yeah, because they've got, well,
if I had any space, I would.
If you had any space.
It wouldn't be a nice place to bring them because it's a bit overcrowded.
Right.
But yes.
Sorry, okay.
Rental?
Yeah.
You can't do it?
Yeah.
Someone else's job?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
You can't take one?
I don't have a space.
Don't have the space?
Perhaps the greatest irony in all of this was spotted at the ongoing Labour Party conference. So apparently there was a pro-mass migration stand-up to racism event that was oversubscribed. So they had to, get this, implement a one-in, one-out policy. What, just in case it got a bit too crowded? Was it? Just in case it got a bit uncomfortable for the people who were already there? Look, all of our lives are being put in danger by what's coming across the channel, and our left-wing politicians and the Refugees Welcome activists want us all to take all of that risk on without being willing to take any of that risk themselves. Let's get the thoughts from my panel this evening. We've got political commentator and broadcaster Emma Webb, we've got journalist and commentator Benjamin Butterworth, and the former chairman of the Conservative Party, Sir Jake Berry. Emma, I'll bring you in on this. You know, we have now a very serious allegation from a man who should know, and probably does know, Robert Jenrick, that we've got terrorists coming across the channel. But, you know, we have MPs there who they won't even take a foreign staffer just in case that person turns out to be a spy. Why is it the public have to take all the risk?
I mean, you'd laugh if it wasn't so terrifying. It'd be pretty surprising, wouldn't it, if Islamist terrorists weren't exploiting these routes. They did it all throughout the migrant crisis. Many of those who were connected to attacks in Europe had exploited those migrant routes and the free movement of people on the European continent within Schengen or whatever. So, I mean, it would be shocking if they weren't exploiting those routes. And I think the Stand Up to Racism event just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, one in, one out. That's a very reasonable policy. And actually, you know, these are the sorts of people who like to go to big events where they have huge fences up that are ticketed and exclusive, and so that they can have their sort of Extinction Rebellion sort of festivals and
With Labour Party conferences the same,
but they value their security in those settings. They won't let unvetted migrants into their own homes, but they don't mind if it becomes the neighbour of somebody in a deprived area. I don't think it sounds like it's very much in the socialist spirit, does it?
Why is it OK, Benjamin, for the public to just have to take it on the chin that there might be a terrorist moving into a council house or a hotel near them?
Well, first of all, I can't believe Robert Jenrick is lecturing on the numbers of people coming across in boats, given that he was the immigration minister that saw the numbers go through the roof. He is one of the men responsible for this. So it might be a bit more honest of him to take responsibility rather than throwing stones.
Do you accept that terrorists are coming across the channel, though?
Well, it's definitely a problem that anyone's coming across the channel because you don't know who they are and it's dangerous for those people. But I think the idea that all these people are somehow... I hate when people call them military-age men. They are young people, often, you know, that are trying to build a life, escaping tragedies and war that we, thankfully, have no idea.
Terrorists.
Well, you know, you should be able to vet them and you should be able to check who they are. But it is really ugly to call people that have been through horrors that we could not imagine and to try and put them in a bracket with terrorists, given that most of them are doing this because they are fleeing terrorism.
Well, it does seem to me as though the public is being asked to take on an immense level of risk here, Jay, which is, you know, you're not allowed to talk about having any issues with that migrant hotel down the road or if social housing is going to be used to house some of these people. But you look at some politicians there, they're being told, oh, we better not even take people who've been vetted originally, people who've come to Britain legally, just in case they might be spies. If we can't figure out who a spy is, how on earth do we know who a terrorist is?
Well, look, the first thing is, looking at the facts, Robert Jenrick would know what he's talking about. He was the immigration minister under Rishi Sunak. He would have had these sort of confidential briefings. If he says this is what's happened, I'm afraid this is what has happened and probably is happening. That's deeply, deeply worrying for people who live here in the United Kingdom. It's all very well for Benjamin to say you should be able to vet these people. You can't. They're arriving illegally. They're coming on dinghies. Most of them
they throw their passports away.
They throw their passports away, and most of them we don't even find. Probably they run off when they arrive in the UK. It's only probably very few of them we actually intercept. This is deeply, deeply worrying. More widely on this point of banning people who are foreign-born, haven't lived in the UK, I think, for 5 years, from the parliamentary estate working for MPs, it's just wrong. I mean, first of all, there is one member of staff who has been accused of spying on behalf of a foreign government. He was British. Whether he's guilty or not, I don't think he's gone to trial yet, but he was British. When I was a member of Parliament, I often had interns from the United States. More often than not, I had many more interns from Rossendale and Darwin in Lancashire, my own constituency, but we had people come in from the United States. It made Parliament better. It enabled the young people who work in Parliament for MPs to make connections with people around the world. I think this is a bad mistake. And, of course, if you apply it to Parliament, I wonder if the government will be applying the same thing to the civil service. Arguably, civil servants have much more access to confidential information than any member of Parliament ever would. I'm not aware of the civil service banning people who are foreign-born working for the civil service. It's inconsistent. It's just very muddle-headed, and it just speaks to a government. It's already well for Benjamin to say, well, Robert Jenrick was the person who oversaw this. But it's the Labour government now. They have lost control of our borders. 46% of the people who've come to the United Kingdom illegally, irregularly, as they would say, have come in the last 11 weeks. It's extraordinary.
Let's just put that fact in perspective. The numbers that have been coming each day are basically exactly the same as the last 2 years. It's the fact that it's summer, not the fact that there was a change of government. That doesn't undermine the problem.
I thought the sun always shone under the Labour Party.
That doesn't undermine
Benjamin.
the problem. But the idea that, you know, Afghanis in Calais are flicking through the Labour manifesto to check what's going to happen is obviously nonsense.
You say that, but it's not obviously nonsense at all, because before there was at least some deterrent, and that deterrent was not just Rwanda, it was the idea that if you did come and land on our shores, you would not be able to ever legally claim asylum. That deterrent has now...
If Rwanda was a deterrent, then why did the numbers go up after it was passed by Parliament?
Interesting, fine. Well, why do the Germans now want to implement it on the British taxpayers' dime would be my retort to that. But
well, they don't want to send migrants away. They want to offshore the process.
But exactly what Keir Starmer was talking about with Giorgia Meloni last week. He has accepted... by his actions, going to Italy and saying to Giorgia Meloni, this works, processing people in Albania works. He's accepted, I believe, by his actions that he was wrong on Rwanda. It's got rid of the only deterrent we had, and numbers have gone up.
If the Labour Party, which is said in this article that was published in the Daily Mail after Robert Jenrick's quotes, the Labour Party said that they deny this, that they deny that there's terrorists coming across the channel. It does become a straight shootout between who do you believe.
Well, that's terribly worrying if they are denying it, because they don't know. They don't know who's coming in on the small boats. That's the point. That's why people are concerned about security. And anybody who is familiar with Islamist extremism and the history of attacks in Europe knows that they exploit those routes. So it's just nonsense to suggest that there's, no security risk there. I don't know if that's exactly what they're suggesting, but if they are, then it's just frankly insane. And, when Keir Starmer comes out and talks about things like having an amnesty in order to fast-track asylum claims to clear the backlog, that's the opposite of what the British people want. That's putting a sticking plaster over the problem. And of course, that's going to incentivise people to want to come across the Channel. Why wouldn't it? They know that now Europe is toughening its restrictions on freedom of movement. The Netherlands wants to close its border and to be tougher on migration if the EU lets it, which it probably won't. But the fact is that other European countries are now sending a harder message on migration, whereas the current Labour government is sending the message that Britain is soft, come here, our doors are open.
I mean, when you see, Benjamin, that thing at Labour Party conference where they implement a one-in, one-out policy, that is a perfect little metaphor for society, isn't it? Where people think, actually, it's a bit full, it's a bit uncomfortable, we have a finite amount of resources, we better do a one-in, one-out policy for an event that's designed to basically promote mass, unfettered immigration. Does that not highlight the utter hypocrisy of the left more than anything else?
No, I mean, Britain is not full. Only about 7% of Britain is built on, for goodness sake.
Let's build on all of it then, shall we?
Yeah, I think that's. I think move fast and build things, as I think Ed Miliband said today.
Oh, thank you for saying what you mean, Benjamin.
I think we should concrete over much of it, quite frankly, and put some houses up. But the idea of comparing a room, with a health and safety requirement of how many people can be in it, to a large country with masses of countryside and an economy that dearly needs more workers. The only reason we're going to pay for all those retirees demanding big pension pots is by having more workers. So they either want the winter fuel allowance to be able to be funded, or they don't.
Well, it doesn't matter because they're not getting it anyway. You've already abolished that.
We need more.
OK, well, I mean, the economic case for that doesn't particularly work because it cost us £8 billion, I think it was, in the last year, wasn't it, for migrants who are economically inactive. So there's this idea, and
that's wrong.
GDP per capita is going down.
That's not correct. They took the number of people not born in this country and then times that by the amount of benefits they could get. But it was a completely fabricated statistic.
It's completely fabricated, right? OK.
Yeah, because most people that weren't born in this country and aren't in work are people that have chosen not to or retirees.
Well, I mean, I think it's not just about money. There are communities up and down Britain that are they're losing community facilities. So in Darwin, there was a brilliant hotel that I used to take my kids to the carvery they had on a Sunday. That was closed because the hotel got put full of migrants. They are being put, particularly in working class northern communities where property is cheaper, they are being put completely inappropriately in these communities with no facilities, no support. There's no new GP surgeries, no extra buses. That one in, one out is a perfect metaphor.
And my main point with this, which is to come back to where we started with the Robert Jenrick point, is those communities who are being asked to take all the risk.
Correct.
They are the ones who are being asked to take all the risk. So you can argue about resources, you can argue about whether we should build more homes, you can argue about all of that. One of the main focus that I have is just out-and-out public safety. It's the issue of whether or not we have now got terrorists living in Britain who came across the Channel. And it is ordinary working-class, normal people on the street who are being asked to take that risk in a way that...
Well, maybe they should all be housed in affluent areas, and then I think we would see the elite change their tune.
I think we should take a vote. I think we should have some kind of referendum whereby if pockets of the country decide that they want to be #refugees welcome, then they should take them there.
Correct.
And I would just finish this particular by asking, if you were in a position, Benjamin, would you be taking refugees into your own home?
Well,
unvetted.
With London housing prices, it's definitely not a position I'm in.
But if you were, Benjamin,
if I were, I gladly would, just like Gary Lineker did.
Just like Gary Lineker did, which was an incredibly well-vetted individual and all of that stuff, yeah.
Well, just like Lily Allen, I wouldn't.
OK, all right.